Of course, great to be back up here. And you might wonder, why is the AI and analytics guy back up here talking about brands in the NFL? But of course, people forget that my day job is I am the chair of Wharton's marketing department. I do a lot of work on branding. As I was telling Gerrit beforehand, I spent 5 years working for the Eagles in the NFL, building their, spilled a little bit, and there we go, building their data science group. And of course, I know a little bit about the Wharton School, and of course, a little promotion here. For those of you that love statistics and sports like I do, you can tune in every week through your podcast, SiriusXM as well, at W Moneyball. Wharton Moneyball is our 10-year running every week radio show talking about statistics and sports. So that's why I'm here. But you might also wonder, what do the NFL and the Wharton School have to do with each other? Well, actually, there's a lot of things. Besides, we've been doing educational programs for the NFL for a large number of years. I think we'd all agree in their respective industries, they're so far the #1 brand. So let's start there. That's easy, right? I think #2, you could also imagine our dean and the NFL get many opportunities to extend their brand. And I would think one of the biggest responsibilities of both of them is to be very protective of the brand. So we're going to talk about that as well. And the third part is, of course, they're both truly international organizations. And so how do they think about international expansion? So I'm really excited to be up here to interview our dean, Erika James, and Gerrit Meier from the NFL. So Gerrit, let me start with you. According to the notes given to me and also my ChatGPT research, you've run brands like Red Bull. I can't believe this one, something from the WWE, iHeartRadio. So what have you learned from running those brands? Is it just whatever you learned there can be applied to the NFL? What's the same and what's different?
First of all, thank you for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity to be part of this. Bom dia. Brazil is really becoming a really big part for the NFL, so very, very apropos to be here. And the Eagles reference, obviously, for the game also. September 6th, right here, little plug, shameless plug. But back to your question, a little bit of all of it. There's a lot of new learning as you go through these various stages and companies, but there's also a lot of similarities. And the similarities, for me, at least the way I kind of look back at all these opportunities, were about building communities around the world, locally, regionally, internationally. What gets people interested? Why should they care? Relevance, driving awareness, driving education. You mentioned iHeartRadio, which, back in the day and still very much right now is a domestic product for the United States, but it went from terrestrial to digital. So how do you translate an audio brand into a audio-visual, photo, text, video brand that can now be consumed in many, many different ways? We're talking now already like 20 years back when iHeart was created. So it was a very, very big shift about creating communities that already know the brands. The individual brands was not iHeartRadio. The individual brands is the Kiss FM, the Z100, etc. And then the same with Red Bull. Red Bull, you have a lot of niche sports. Red Bull is known for activating across a lot of sports that are not so well known. It's always about giving wings to people and ideas, right? That's the slogan for Red Bull. And that's very true as you look at the sports and the athletes that they've been supporting their entire existence. And so how do you create communities around that? And WWE, since you mentioned it, actually is probably the most comparable in a funny, round way. So it's inherently a media product around the world. It is built around live events, very much the same.
But you're not telling me the NFL's fake.
It's all scripted. We came clean last year.
It's scripted like the WWE?
We came last year. We came with the NFL. We came clean last year. We said it was all scripted when we can't. No, there's a lot of similarities on the storytelling. About the characters, about the consumption, about the fandom, merchandise, everything you kind of think about that makes a brand in the end. So, it kind of carried over as I came to the NFL about having a conversation about the ambition to go broader internationally, what that could look like, what that would entail, the ambition of being a broader and more recognized brand and sport internationally is not new. to the NFL. That didn't start last year. That's been going on for decades. The commitment to international has been around for a long, long time. So what is different now that would actually allow us to do? And again, it comes back to what communities can we create around the world that maybe not inherently are starting with football in their life, who didn't grow up with the game, who didn't maybe grow up with any kind of connectivity to a specific team. So the way you build fandom in the US around football or also other sports is very, very different than internationally. So a lot of the themes, to your point, repeat themselves throughout.
So Erika, let me ask you, you've obviously led many institutions. Certainly you came to us from Emory University prior to this. Is the Wharton brand just different? Like, how do you think about your leadership at other institutions and how it's translated, in my mind, I think everyone here, so well to the Wharton School?
The Wharton brand is different because it is the world's first business school. And so when you start with the legacy like that, then you know you have to preserve the brand, you have to preserve the reputation more than anything else. So people often ask me, what is the thing that keeps me up at night, what I worry most about? It is the reputation. So what makes the Wharton brand different? First of all, we have a tremendous faculty, both in terms of scope of the research that they do. We have 10 academic disciplinary departments within a single business school, including things like ethics and legal studies and real estate and healthcare, which are not found in most other business schools. So we can offer more to the world than many other business schools. So that's one point of differentiation. Another is because of the brand, because of the longevity of the school, we are known throughout not only North America, but South America, Europe, Asia. We have a tremendous, powerful network, an alumni network in all of those places. So we're able to leverage the fact that we were the first, we are the biggest, arguably the best business school in the world.
You can remove the word arguably.
We are the best business school in the world, and that continues to feed on itself. So I think from that respect, it's very difficult for other business schools to compete with the brand that the Wharton brand has.
So Gerrit, let me follow up on that. So we're here in São Paulo in Brazil. Matter of fact, we were talking, I think I missed Frankfurt, but you've been the NFL internationally to date, I think has been in England, of course, in London. You've been in Germany, and I guess Frankfurt and Munich. You've been in Mexico City. Why Brazil? Like, I'm sure many people here were thankful for Brazil, but there are wealthier countries from a GDP perspective in the world. Why did the NFL pick Brazil as its next launching point?
So again, just a little bit, going back a little bit more so to what we talked about earlier, but that the ambition has been around for a long time. So if you want to list all the countries, it's a much longer list if you include exhibition games, practice games that have happened over the decades as part of various activations that the NFL has been doing around the world, including an actual dedicated league, NFL Europe, way back, with dedicated teams that were all kind of run out of the NFL with its own franchise in the country. So again, how we think about countries has evolved. What you're referencing now, the Germany games, the London games, the Mexico games, and now the Sao Paulo game, those are regular season games. So where we trying to differentiate ourselves already is we're taking the real deal internationally. In some cases, for other leagues, that's just not possible, but by the way they're set up. But for us, it was very, very important that when we go somewhere, the fans in that market have the opportunity to experience the way you would experience in the US. So every game we're talking about, including the Brazil games, those are regular season games. At the moment, until this year, we have an ownership resolution that allows us to go up to 4 regular season games. Jacksonville Jaguars always do an additional kind of game on their own at Wembley Stadium on top, so that's kind of the 5th game when people talk about 5 games. But starting next year, through the ownership vote that we had last December at our annual meeting, we can go up to 8 games next year. So last year, we really started thinking and said, okay, we have a commitment to London because of our investment at the Spurs Stadium in London. That's 2 games a year. We have been seeing a lot of great success since our first game in Germany 2 years ago. So it was Munich, last year was Frankfurt, we're going back to Munich this year. Mexico has always been a great, great city for us. Right now we're taking a pause there because the stadium is in renovation for the World Cup coming to North America. So then we were like, okay, but if we go up to 8, what other markets should we be looking at? And on the top of the list was Brazil. And it actually has nothing really to do with how rich the country is or necessarily how big the country is. It's about some of the kind of underlying fundamentals. And the first one is we have an existing fan base of 36 million fans in Brazil for the game, for the NFL. And many of them are avid fans. They follow the game. They watch the league. So for us, as we kind of looked around, what would be a natural market for us to kind of go to, it was all about seeing whether Brazil would reciprocate to us, because it goes two ways. To host a game in a country goes way beyond the game itself. When we do a game, it is always in the context of something larger. So for us, it's not just we're doing the game and then that was it. We're going to open up the NFL Brazil office this year in conjunction with the game. We're going to have dedicated resources and a team here. We activate year-round. A lot of times the conversation very quickly focuses on the game, but it's much more than the game. We activate throughout. We are driving participation, everything else. So we're looking at all of that, and Brazil very easily comes out as one of the top countries. There's others we're going to. We already announced that next year we're going to Spain for the first time, playing a game at Madrid.
I'm sure the Brazilians here are happy you came here first before Spain.
And so we keep exploring. We have an ambition that drives us to become a global sports property. That means we have to go into many more countries, play a lot more games. But looking at Brazil and the feasibility of Brazil, which is never easy, there's a lot of work that goes into it, a lot of people involved. So we're very excited that this is now actually happening about, soon after we actually announced it.
So this is wonderful for me sitting up here as the moderator, if you'd like. We're only on the second question, and I think you can already see the parallels. You can imagine the question I'm going to ask my dean, Erika James, is why did Wharton choose São Paulo and Brazil to be the location of the forum? But already you can see why we're all together up here on stage. So Erika, why São Paulo? Why did it make sense from a strategy point of view from the Wharton School?
For much of the same reasons. We have a tremendous alumni base here. I think in Brazil alone we have over 500 alumni. So we have a fan base, to use that language, already, and we can leverage that fan base to attract more people. One of the other things is Brazil is a fast-growing country, and there are a lot of young people, and we develop the future generation of young people. And so the thing that allowed us to really claim Brazil as the next location for us is we brought our global youth programs here, created an opportunity for our parents who are alumni of the Wharton School to bring their children, their next generation, to a forum, experience Wharton. We taught them some fundamental classes on entrepreneurship and innovation this weekend, and that then is creating the next generation of Wharton alumni, potentially Wharton students, Wharton alumni. And so this is a market for us that has been loyal, committed, excited, enthusiastic, and is growing. And so we wanted to show our appreciation to the Brazil community by bringing Wharton here.
And I think you would agree, similar to Gerrit's answer, like we're leaving sort of, but we're not leaving. Like this, like people like to focus on the games, but it's a year-round work that we're going to be doing.
It's a year-round, but it's an investment in that respect, right? We want to continue to build and pour into Brazil, knowing that Brazil will also continue to pour in to the Wharton School, but also to the NFL, hopefully.
Yeah, and it has a lot, for us at least, has a lot to do also with, the way we got embraced, when we started talking to the country, and then we started looking at the various cities. Again, that's part of a process that we do with different countries, and everyone in Brazil, the passion, the kind of commitment, the way everyone was immediately leaning in, understanding the way we were thinking about it, but also the other way around, what we need to learn, right? So when we come to a market, obviously we come with an inherently American product. The game, again, it's a regular season game, so there's a lot of things that are non-negotiable, but then everything else around it is something that we want to learn from the country, we want to learn from the region, we want to understand how we create that relevance. And the way, especially Sao Paulo, when we did the announcement, and SB Tourists, it was the tourism board of Sao Paulo and the mayor, Nunes here, everyone has committed right from the beginning. We're seeing it on a daily basis, especially now that we're ramping up with only 3 months to go. That is very unique, and that just confirms our decision to kind of come here.
Well, Gerrit, your response to that, or to respond to Erika's response, I'm going to skip orders of questions in my own mind because you made me think of something. You know, the classic thing about brands, they say, is be global but be local. So how do you think about adapting what you're doing to the NFL here, given the Eagles-Packers game coming up on Friday, September 6th? How do you think about making it still the global NFL, but being local to what the fans and the people expect here in São Paulo?
It starts with the small things and goes all the way to kind of the larger things. So the small things is you will see in everything from the design of that we're using, the branding, the activations that come not just around the stadium, also within the city, the fan activations. Again, it's going to go on over an extended period of time, but it goes broader. Every country, again, we're just starting now, but if I can maybe use Germany as a case study, where for two years ago we had our first game. Since then, we've seen significant investment in infrastructure. Since then, we've seen the economic benefit that goes to the city in which we play the games and then stay. So we just recently announced that the city of Düsseldorf, where NFL Germany is housed in Germany, as a city has committed to infrastructure play on flag football infrastructure, to get more younger boys and young girls to kind of play the game and get into football. We see government commitments to get the sport into the schools. We work with the governments and the municipalities to work on healthy eating and other learning and education. Those are all things that go year-round. So in the end, we all hope that economic benefit will come out for everything. And you know, the first Munich game generated for the city of Munich around 70 million euros. For Frankfurt, where we had back-to-back games, 2 games, so we stayed longer, was an economic benefit of about 110 million euros. So there is measurable benefit to the city and to the region, but what we really believe in is the long-term sustainable growth of the game and what it does to the youth population in that market, and that's what we're also seeing from the clubs. So then kind of committing, so in the conversation that we're having currently with the Eagles and the Packers and how they're thinking about how they will activate here, how they will kind of communicate to the region, all of that is kind of like how you adopt to the locality of an individual market.
Yeah, Erika, how do you think about that as well? Because I imagine in your own mind, there's some bedrock principles of the Wharton School that it doesn't matter where we are in the world, but you could imagine other things more of a tactical nature that could change locally. How do you think about that as Wharton, as you travel the world and represent our school, and think about also how do we deliver education that's valuable both globally and locally?
Yeah, it's really important. So in 1983, Wharton made a pretty significant investment in global education through the Lauder Institute, which combines business education with the MBA and international relations through a master's degree in international studies. We did the same thing a few years later with our undergraduate program. So that was Wharton's commitment to making sure that the generation of leaders that are within our scope are experiencing global understanding, global cultural awareness, etc. As we prepare them for a global world, we recognize that those students are coming to us from discrete countries. And we then also have to learn about those countries because we're bringing them into our community. And so we leverage the insights and the perspectives and the experiences from students who come to us from Brazil, or students who come to us from from Argentina, or from a country in Europe. And we learn and include those insights and those perspectives into the conversations and discussions that happen in the classroom, so everyone benefits from the cultural awareness that is created from the Wharton classroom experience.
Yeah, I think the other thing, even just when I've looked at the topics list for this forum, I was saying there are some that are obviously so relevant to this country, and I give you and your team such credit for identifying ones that are of broad interest, but also locally there.
Absolutely.
Now, obviously, Gerrit and Erika, you can imagine, now I have to go back, I am the data science guy. So I have to ask a question about measurement, which is, how do you measure success of an NFL game? Obviously, I'm going to ask you how you measure success of the forum. I mean, one kind of, if you asked a mathematician who doesn't know really anything else but that, I would say, you have a bunch of measures before, you have some event, you got some set of measures after, you got after minus before, and there you go. But forget what I think. No one in this audience wants to hear me talk. What do you think? How do you measure? What does success look like? Eric, you want to go first? What does success of the forum look like to you?
So first of all, I am a management person. I'm a psychologist by training, so feelings and emotions matter to me also. And the feeling and the emotion that has been communicated in this room over the past 48 hours is one data point for the success of a program. Then I would say there are long-term metrics. So one of the things that we look to is, will there be ongoing engagement? So this is not a one-and-done investment within Brazil, but it is, what are the relationships that have been formed? Are new people coming to us? Are we more closely tied with corporations in the region that we had not been close to before? Do we see application volume increase over the years? So those are all examples of ways that we would determine the investment that we made to be here for this weekend will carry on.
Including, of course, ai-analytics.wharton.upenn.edu, which would love your data and your business problems. But that was the other talk. Gerrit, how does the NFL think about success?
That was an emotionally relevant URL right there.
Well,
So maybe start with the feeling and emotions. Right? I think, because, it's no surprise that when you talk NFL, you do get into data and analytics very quickly. It is the most measured and analyzed league in the world, and we're very proud of it because it gives us the tools and the insights that we require to make it the most competitive league, and we believe that the competitiveness drives the success of the league in the end. So that we embrace data and analytics and have a dedicated team that is, world class is I don't think new, but talk about emotions and feelings. The beauty of what digital gives us these days globally, it does allow us to actually measure global sentiment. How do people actually feel about you? And so for us, as we think about global success, which very quickly jumps to economics, right? It's return, revenue, how quickly will you make money, etc. That is for a league of our size that is so focused on our domestic business and its core and being so successful as we are, a very different kind of conversation. Again, don't get me wrong. In the end, we would like to see the economic return and growth for us internationally. That is the ambition of being a global sports property. But the question is, how do you get there? Right? And the way things have changed over the last 20, 25 years with digital and how people consume and how people get information and being influenced about what brands and products to engage with is sentiment matters. What your friends say, what your family says, what your community says, what your like-minded folks around where you live think. And so we're actually monitoring that very carefully about what people say about us, how people feel about it, the feedback that we're getting, that obviously is very social driven about what we're hearing there. But as we kind of grow and we see that sentiment of engagement around football kind of grow, what we see very clearly is that the engagement that we got on social, viewership, we can do attendance. I mean, I can go down the list of everything we measure domestically, right, which has relevance because, we're fine-tuning of a league of this size. But internationally, we only have those 4 or 5 games. We are, always oversubscribed. We had, close to 2 million registry of interest for the 100,000 tickets we had in Frankfurt. So it's not about selling out. That's not really the challenge. It's more about what can we create in that market long term? So we are looking basically at anything you can come up with, from a sentiment, from a viewership, from an engagement. We're looking at our merchandise sales, who buys what. We're looking at our sponsorship interests, what brands are interested in us, because they usually have more data on their local markets than we have in their local market. So when we go into market and we see who's getting interested in us, we know how they're thinking about us. So we never stop analyzing, but quite honestly, we're also learning because we'll go into markets where analytics are not as developed, where we're going to go into and we will not get the same access to the same data. But we're extremely rigorous, but we are allowing ourselves, especially for the international growth, to go with a lot of, we start with the data, but then we go with a lot of sentiment and we go with a lot of feel of like, okay, still does it feel right? And then it's the other numbers backing it up as we kind of go through the years, because otherwise you don't try anything, right? If you use everything on a predictive model or you only use the immediate moment of the data in that moment, there is a real risk that you look at your investment and you immediately go like, we probably shouldn't do this the second year, or we shouldn't do this the third year. And back to your point, it's an investment. So we're kind of looking at it, yes, over time, but we're thinking very long term here. We have ownership that is extremely patient. not always, not always. Sometimes they're extremely impatient, but it's a league that's over 100 years old, and we see the ownership kind of looking at how they're going to grow this. So even if we're not immediately getting all the returns we're looking for, fandom measurement is probably, if you say, which is the one thing that it's about fandom measurement. If we see that fandom goes up, then we believe over time everything else will follow.
Erika, I'm interested in your reaction to Gerrit's comment, because of course you have to take, there's lots of, whether it's board members or maybe even sometimes the faculty, God forbid, take more of a short-term perspective. How do you take a long-term perspective on building our brand? Since 1881 was Joseph Wharton, and if you want to go even farther back, Benjamin Franklin in 1740.
I think you have to do both. So again, going back to a comment I made earlier, one of my primary responsibilities is to preserve the brand for the next 143 years. So I have to take a long-term perspective. But as a leader and as someone who is managing a group of people who are all type A personalities, very ambitious, they want to see results in real time. So I think we have to find ways to engage in activities that will deliver long-term, but also achieve short-term goals and objectives.
Yeah. And maybe if I can just add to that,
Please.
And that's the credit to the league and the ownership and how they're thinking about it, because they're very involved. We're in times of good stability as it comes to the league, right? From a revenue perspective, a lot of the media rights, longer-term agreements. We have good agreements with the players, so a lot about the revenue and the cost base for the next foreseeable future puts us as a league in a good position. A lot of leagues in that moment will then default to do nothing. Everything goes well, we don't have to do anything until kind of like, if it ain't broken. So the league is looking at this differently. It's like, this is actually a perfect moment in time to explore and look at things that maybe we wouldn't have the time for if we would be more distracted with something that's happened. There's enough going on domestically anyhow, but it's also kind of the commitment to explore new things when things are on the better of the sides of, versus, not.
So let me ask each, Erika and Gerrit, kind of next to last question is about the role of technology. So obviously, AI is changing education today. I think many of us saw Ethan Mollick's presentation, and remember, I think he said, I forget if it was like 22nd is business educator on the list of endangered species, is the way he described it. But do you as a person, as a scholar, also as our dean, embrace technology? And Gerrit, I'm going to ask you the same question about how, like, as the NFL, there's us NFL purists, like in the 1970s when I watched football, it was the Raiders against the, et cetera. So I'm interested in both how you both think about technology, embracing it or kind of in the middle.
I don't know how you cannot embrace technology. That is the direction that the world is moving. It is increasingly a part of our professional lives, our personal lives. So to presume it's not going to have significant impact on everything that we do would, I think, be almost silly. And part of our responsibility is to develop the next generation to use technology in responsible, meaningful, ethical ways. And so we wouldn't be doing our jobs if we weren't not only embracing technology, but helping the students that are in our fold learn how to use it in a meaningful, responsible way.
By the way, before Gerrit responds, let's take this opportunity to thank Erika James for her visionary decision to make AI and data science the big future of the Wharton School while she's sitting up here. I said it during my talk, but I wanted to say it with you present. So, Gerrit, how does the NFL think about technology?
Of course, technology needs to be fully embraced, but technology comes in many different ways, right? We're using technology and improvement on equipment. We're using technology and improvement in what's happening on the field during a game. We're using technology in the data and analytics, after the game. We're looking at how we're going to market and trying to get a better understanding of where to go. That's all technology. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to make decisions where we go next in the countries we embrace. For us, it comes always back down to one thing, is the success of the league is built on its own competitiveness. Right? At the beginning of each season, actually with the draft, right? That starts the hope of the new season, right? The next quarterback you may have gotten, or the next position that you felt you failed in as a team the last season. It starts everything all over again. The idea that anyone can win, anyone can beat anyone, and can in the end kind of go all the way is at the core of the NFL's success. You can only do this if you embrace technology. right? So we're using technology, always very carefully, always very much tested, so in every which way we're using it. But in the end, we use technology to create better competitiveness, right? That's why we have equality within all the teams, the access for all 32 teams to the technology that we're using, but also to, in the end, create competitiveness not to the detriment of the players, right? So in the end, it starts and ends with the game, and the game is made up of the players. So player health and safety needs to be front and center in this game. And if technology helps us to do so, and we will evolve the game, and at the same time can ensure that the game remains or even gets more competitive, then that's good for the fan, right? And obviously you always have outliers or fans who would like to see a game that we these days can't support anymore and don't want to support anymore. And so for us, it is about the commitment to technology, but also to be very aware about where we're using it and when we're using it. But I think we're extremely progressive, at least kind of what I see in comparison to some of the other leagues. And I think we will continue to do so, to be very responsible in our application of it. But in the end, it is all about making the game better.
I'm sure our dean would also say, I hope you would agree with, Wharton can do anything with technology, but it can't be to the detriment of our learners or our scholars.
Of course.
That's just, so maybe just in the last question to each of you, Erika, we'll start with you. What would you like people to know about the Wharton brand that maybe you didn't think about before you joined us at the Wharton School? When I say the Wharton brand, like what are those memorable few things that you think about?
I think about the network, the relationships that are formed and that are sustained because we do things like this. We intentionally work to bring the Wharton community together, and I think that then feeds off of itself. And I will say, I think I was a little naive when I came to Wharton. Of course, even then, everyone knew that it was the #1 business school in the world, but I didn't fully appreciate the impact that Wharton has in the world across so many different sectors. So being a part of that, where you know that the students that you put out, the scholarship of our faculty, really it's changing economies, it's changing societies, it's changing healthcare, it's changing public policy. That I underappreciated until I became a part of this ecosystem myself.
And we deeply, deeply care, which that I'm sure you knew. Gerrit, how about the NFL? What would you like us all to know about the NFL brand?
That you don't already know? I mean, maybe something I can share because, my responsibility is everything that is not in the US, and, not knowing exactly how many we have who are US-based versus not US-based is, where I got the greatest satisfaction in this job is that I can go into any country in the world. And when somebody says, like, what do you do? And I say, NFL, and I'm just going into trying to explain what the NFL is because, we're only the #1 sport in one country, and that is in the United States. So, I always say you always have to create awareness that, going with an NFL acronym into a country doesn't always necessarily mean people understand what it is. So I'm always trying to lean in. And when you see the eyes kind of lighting up and you go like, and again, you can be the other side of the world and somebody says, I'm an Eagles fan, or I'm a Cowboys fan, or, whatever out of the 32 kind of gets you excited. Or internationally, which is maybe very interesting, a little nugget which a lot of people don't appreciate in the US is the NFL as a brand itself, as the shield, is actually in itself a brand, right? So one of the most sold consumer products that we sell at international games are actually products that only have the shield on, because the majority of NFL fans around the world have not yet decided on a team. So we've been for many, many years now in Germany, but only recently with games. So we have about 19 million active fans in Germany, of which half have not yet decided on their favorite team. So if you just think about growth opportunity for the clubs, this is why we have so many clubs right now leaning in and using their global markets rights programs to go in there, because they see fandom, they see fans, they see people excited. We always play kind of jersey bingo when we go to the games. How quickly can you spot all 32 jerseys at a game? It's a very different kind of environment when you go there. So maybe that's to share, to kind of take away that you might not realize, because you grow up so much with your club probably in the United States, that I get to see every day, and it's awesome.
Well, I think an appropriate way to end this panel would be for the three of us to each raise our Eagles cups. Let's see if we can get Gerrit to do so. To to thank the Wharton School and the NFL for being here in São Paulo. And again, thank you to Gerrit Meier, and thanks to my dean, Erika James. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erika.
Thank you to Eric, Erika, and Gerrit for that wonderful presentation to close out the session. We did a lot of learning. We're going to go do a lot of partying.